I am going to try to make some people feel some stuff. Hopefully, going to make some people mad. Hopefully, going to make some people see a couple things. Bold claim right here. Let's start with this. Running is a strength dependent skill. I want to break this down. I want to unpack this a little bit. I also want to recognize that back in 2006, 2007, maybe 2005, when Born to Run was published, and everybody was in the like minimal shoe, Tarahumara sandal style craze, and we saw Vibram Five Fingers. At that point, I was saying, running is a strength dependent skill. And at that point, I was actively coaching running as a skill. I was a Chi running instructor. I studied directly with Danny, who wrote the book Chi Running. I studied also under Brian McKenzie, who wrote Power Speed Endurance and built the CrossFit Endurance Training Program, which pulled from Pose Running for a long time. If you bought a pair of Ultras, there was like 3 tips about running technique on the inside cover of the box. And those ideas merged perfectly with the things that we taught and learned in Pose and in Chi Running. So I've had this belief for 20 years that running is a skill. And when we get into this headspace of, well, running is a normal human movement, it is a thing that we should be able to do, I think that the thing that we lose sight of sometimes is that we also live in a world where everything, we have tons of pavement. We sit, we look at computer screens, we talk into cameras. There are a lot of things in our modern world that pull us away from ideals, right? And so the idea of needing to learn how to run and needing to put emphasis into our running technique isn't crazy. And I can kind of see the reason why anyone would think that it is. For example, I've got a 5-year-old, and when my 5-year-old, especially at the climbing gym, and he gets to run on the pads, man, this kid runs with really fantastic form. His foot lands underneath him. He's pulling his knee. He's getting into a figure 4. He's landing on the midfoot or slightly towards the ball of the foot. He's absorbing and transferring power. He's doing all these things really well. Well, if a 5-year-old can do it, obviously it's natural. We don't need to learn it. But you've also spent your life some percentage of time sitting, whether it's in a car, whether it's on planes, whether it's at your desk or your kitchen table or wherever. And as we age, we gain the experience of all of our patterns. And those patterns sometimes don't serve our running terribly well. It isn't as simple as saying, well, 5-year-olds can do it, therefore we should all be able to do it. As an argument, sure, but when it comes to the individual, individuals have skills that break down. And one of the main skills that I see that we lose is actually a sense of cadence, a sense of rhythm, a sense of quickness in our feet. And I think some of this is that we get very focused on like, hey, I'm going to go out for 2 hours, or I have an ultra marathon to run, or, I'm just doing an easy run. I'm going to go slow. And so we get our feet moving really slow. We end up spending a lot of time on our feet. And now we're into the concept of, hey, there's a skill of cadence. There's a skill of quickness that we need to train. We can train that skill. And training that skill is inherently really easy. It's not always pleasant. But you can download a metronome app for your phone. You can buy a $30 Seiko metronome off of Amazon. I love these things. I've been using them for 20 some years. There's ways of doing this. Now let's talk about the strength piece of this, because there are plenty of people who have done zero resistance training. They've never stepped foot in a gym, yet their capacity to run for 10 hours or 20 hours or 50 hours or 64 hours is there. Well, how's that possible? Well, it's actually really simple. What that tells us is that person is strong enough in order to do the thing that they're doing, right? They're not getting hurt. They have the requisite strength. But it doesn't mean that strength isn't a component of it. And doesn't mean that everybody, and am I going to say that everybody needs to do strength training to improve their running? No. I'll say that we should probably all be doing some resistance training, some strength training, some calisthenics training, something, so that we can preserve muscle mass as we age. But that's actually a different piece, right? Will strength training directly impact your performance? I don't know. If you're in a performance deficit because you're hurt or you're not weak enough to counter the forces of gravity, then yes, strength training is going to have a direct impact. If you are trying to generate more power and you have a power, you're limited by power for the performance you want, which if you're trying to go from 8-minute miles to 6-minute miles, there is a power component there. And maybe power is the way that we do that, but also training joint position, right? When we run, we need our leg to be able to move through a number of joint positions. And if we don't have that, strength training is one of the ways that we can get that. So let's just unpack this one more time. Running is a strength dependent skill. If you are getting hurt, when you run, if your body doesn't feel good when you run, it is possible that your aerobic conditioning is simply really poor, and you are going to be rebuilding that aerobic conditioning as you go with your running. In fact, I'm kind of in that state right now. My aerobic conditioning is pretty good for bike, but it's not very good for running. And so I'm building that back up. Or if you're getting hurt, if you're sore after a run, if it's knees and hips, it actually is a really smart question to ask. Is it a strength deficit? Is it a skill deficit? And if you just take the approach of, I'm going to run until it gets better, I'm just going to work through this, and you don't pause and consider, well, what do I need? You may not end up doing the thing that you need, and you may end up with a bigger injury. You may end up more hurt, and it might end up working out as well. But this is the work that we do when we think about running and strength training for runners, which is let's make sure that we have the requisite strength to do the things that we want to do. And if we don't, we can build that strength. Also, let's make sure we have those requisite skills. And if we are lacking any of those skills, let's go and build those skills. So that's it. Running is a strength dependent skill. Let's argue about it. Thanks.